I assume you're familiar with Ronald Reagan's, our beloved Ronald Reagan's 11th commandment.
I don't believe he actually was the original
Correct.
author of that.
I was going to bring that up. That was coined during his 1966 campaign for governor of California. And would you like to give it to us?
It was against Barry,
No.
No.
Actually, well, you know, it's thou shalt not speak ill of any fellow Republican. But the words, as I say, did not originate from Ronald Reagan. The quote came from the then California Party chairman, Gaylord Parkinson. Its purpose was to help prevent Mr. Reagan from experiencing a liberal Republican assault, as was done to Arizona Senator Barry Goldwater 2 years earlier and contributed to his landslide trouncing in the 1964 presidential election. To better understand that time period, 1966, the Republican Party was in much weaker shape than it is today. Democrat Lyndon Baines Johnson was the president, and the United States Senate had a 68-32 Democrat majority. In the House of Representatives, it was 295 to 140 Democrat majority. When it came to the governorships, each party had 25. But 2 years later, of course, Richard Nixon was elected president, and there was a Southern strategy, and of course, America's never been the same. It's certain Mr. Reagan and Mr. Parkinson meant well with that quote. However, do you believe it's relevant today?
No, I don't think it's relevant at all, because there has been a lot of grumblings in the Republican Party, especially when it comes to, say, Senator McCain.
Right.
And the term rhino is...
I was going to get to that.
That's what we're looking at. And I think that's why we lost in 2006, because of the rhinos. When the Republicans took the Congress in 1994 with the contract with America, along with that, those Republicans that won made pledges to term limit themselves out, and they did something that's unheard of. They kept their promise to not serve more than the terms that they said that they would. Well, they were replaced in their districts by Rockefeller Republicans from the 60s, the big spenders, ran up deficits. And we used to be the deficit hawks, and we gave up on being the deficit hawks.
Now, what about the 80%, 20% rule that's also attributed to Ronald Reagan?
If somebody is with you 80% of the time, they're a friend.
Correct.
Unless that 20% is really like your final in college. It's 20% of your grade. It's a lot of your grade. And one of those problems that, like I have, is with Richard Desai. When he became the de facto head of the Republican Party in Massachusetts, he said, like Jennifer Nessa said, the Republicans are not going to be the party of traditional values. Well, who is, if we're not? Where does that base go? He also voted not to put the marriage amendment on the ballot, and he was also, more recently, in another column that didn't get in, a sponsor of a transgender bathroom bill, which would have criminalized it for old ladies to complain that there's a guy in the bathroom because he's wearing a dress. Now, I think that hurts Charlie Baker.
Okay.
Because the conservative base isn't going to be there for him. And if he thinks he can pick up the gay vote or liberal vote in exchange for that, it's not a wash.
You kind of jumped the gun before, but I was going to ask you, what is your definition of a rhino, a Republican in name only?
Oh, let's see. John McCain.
Okay.
When you pass a bill, or even suggest a bill that limits free speech, you're not a Republican. When you're spending like the proverbial drunken sailor, you're not a Republican. If you turn your back on traditional family values, you're not a Republican either. It's very important.
And you do believe that John McCain is a rhino?
I don't know why we even nominated him. I mean, the guy was a prisoner of war,
sure,
and he took a beat. There's a lot of guys that went to Vietnam that took a beating too.
Now, do you think it was sort of like a guilty conscience? Because after all, let's be realistic,
Absolutely.
Now, George W. Bush did leave office after 2 terms, very unpopular, and maybe it was a guilty conscience on the part of the Republican Party that they didn't choose him in 2000. He would have been just leaving office in
Well,
2009.
That was the way that the Republican Party has operated at that level. And another example of that is another great war hero was Bob Dole.
Sure.
It was Bob Dole's turn. Well, you can't do that. You're just gonna get stale, and you're gonna have stale ideas.
Who did you support in 2008 for the Republican presidential nomination?
I voted for Alan Keyes.
You did?
I like Alan Keyes.
All right.
I know he didn't have a chance,
Of course.
but I like what he said. He talks about liberty. I want to hear that.
Strange thing is, I don't remember his name on the Massachusetts ballot.
I wrote it
You
in.
wrote it in. That's what comes by, because I know there are only 4 names left by the time primary rolled around.
Yeah, and actually, contrary to popular opinion, I actually thought Sarah Palin helped John McCain. She was the one that was out there talking about liberty.
Sure. Let's shift back to the gubernatorial election. As we speak, it's 2 weeks away from the April 17th nominating convention that's going to be held in Worcester. It appears Charlie Baker will be the Republican nominee for governor, with or without a challenge from Christy Myhouse on the primary ballot. That's if Christy does not get the 15% of the delegates on the floor, his name will not be on the September ballot. Do you think a Baker to say ticket is going to be triumphant in November?
I don't know, because I got to tell you, the only event that I've been to as far as the governor's race is the Tim Cahill event. I like what Tim Cahill says.
Okay.
I think he's done an excellent job as treasurer.
Right. And don't forget, he did pick a Republican to be his lieutenant governor,
he
but he also went unenrolled or independent. Paul Escoca was his name, correct?
Right.
And he is from the Framingham area somewhere?
so.
He was a state representative. Now let's focus on the presidency of Barack Hussein Obama. All right, the president currently has record low approval ratings, but do you think there's a possibility he can recover and win a second term in 2012?
Not at all.
Not at all.
No. He is adamant in pushing through his agenda, which was, if you read his books, he's a Marxist. It's not a hate word.
No.
It has nothing to do with race. It's in his own words.
It's an
he sought out the Marxist professors at Columbia.
It's an economic philosophy
Absolutely.
and a social philosophy.
That's
And
right.
it's always...
Because that kind of philosophy is social economics.
Correct.
And it has nothing to do with business. And if you disagree with him, he either thinks you're a liar or you hate him personally.
Or there's the race card.
I want to build a race card factory. I'd be a millionaire.
Right. We're less than 2 years away from the 2012 primaries and caucuses. Is there anybody in the horizon that you see as a potential Republican candidate for president in 2012?
Governor of North Dakota, Jim Thune.
No, he's a U.S. Senator
He's a
from
US
South
Senator
Dakota.
from South Dakota.
There is a Republican governor in North Dakota that I think you and I had a personal conversation about. He's not well known, but his name is John Hoeven, and he has a banking background. And he's also...
Yes, that's right.
And again, a dark horse, because a state with a small population.
I think it will be a dark horse. Sarah Palin, God bless her,
but not presidential.
Not presidential, no,
And
not at all.
So you mentioned John Thune. He's a senator from South Dakota, and he's probably best known for having brought down Tom Daschle.
And the thing that has people really upset with Barack Obama is the health care.
Okay.
And they're going to wrap that around Mitt Romney because he did the same thing here.
Right.
An individual mandate violates the spirit of the 13th Amendment. It's involuntary servitude to an insurance company.
You know, you were a close friend to WRKO radio host and conservative radio host, Reese on the Radio, Reese Hopkins.
I am a friend of Reese.
Okay.
Not was.
Okay.
No, I am in constant contact.
I do stand corrected. I was going to ask you that. He was on the air here for 9 months on, again, WRKO, and in October 2008, he was canceled, and he was also let go with several other employees of the station, but it was for financial reasons, because the Laura Ingraham show that replaced him in his time slot is less expensive to run.
Yeah, they just plug and play.
Okay. A week after he left the airwaves, he was arrested here in Malden at his home, and he was charged with, he was extradited to New York City, and he's been charged with some crimes that allegedly took place earlier. Without any, you have, say, kept in touch with him.
Actually,
Okay.
I've been doing a lot of help,
And-
helping him a lot with getting in contact with Glenn Sachs.
Okay.
He was on CNN last week.
Now, Glenn Sachs is...
Glenn Sachs is a crusader for men and family. And just wrongful rape convictions is just a minor part of it.
And this was a statutory rape case.